Okay, this is another video on how to put together a document in Adobe InDesign. And in class, I'm going to set this up and explain to you what the premise of this project is. It's going to be a little exercise in putting together 3 posters. And rather than get into the description of what this project, how this project would actually come out in real life. I'm just going to go right into constructing this and get right to it. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen and we are going to go to the assignment. And this is the poster that we're going to create. And again, I'm going to describe this in class, what this is all about. But basically, we have a poster of graphics with backgrounds and text and a map and a logo and an image. And we know enough already now in InDesign to put this together. We talked about setting text. We talked about importing or placing photos. And so you should have enough information now to put this together. And I'm going to do this step by step. I'm going to do this one here, the brown bears of Yellowstone. And I'm going to demonstrate this in class. And then you are going to continue on with this theme and put this poster together, which are the bull elks of Yellowstone and the bald eagles of Yellowstone. So the other 2 posters are going to be based off of this poster here. Okay, and also in the assignment here, you can read the description here. You can also, and I haven't put a due date down on this, but I will. You can also see the page setup here, which is 6.5 by 9.5, and the typefaces that we're going to use, which is chunk 5 and Times Roman. So I'm going to explain to you that. We also talked about loading fonts in InDesign, so you should be able to do that. Okay, so the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to download all of the assets that we need to complete these projects. And I have a zip file here that you can download, so I'm going to just simply click on this and you should be able to see that download. There it is right there. And I'm just going to pull this off over to the desktop, that zip file. And what you're going to want to do is open up the zip file and put it into your thaw space. So that's the very first thing that we want to do, is get our assets. And our assets would probably be things that came from the client. The client sends us photos. You know, in rare cases, the client might ask us to take the photos, but since we're not in Yellowstone, obviously we're going to get the photos from the client and also copy text that's going to be in these posters. Usually comes from the client. Although there are instances where we might be asked to write text, and that kind of gets into a deeper relationship with the client and graphic designer. I'm just going to open up this zip file right here. We see the folder, and the first thing we're going to do is open up our thaw space, go to your file here, and let's put this folder in your folder, your main folder, Yellowstone Kiosk Assets. And if I click on this, we're going to see all of the things that we need to create this document. We're going to see the bear photo. And I've done all of the outlining and knocking out of the background. And I will show you how to do that in Photoshop in another lecture. But for now, this has already been done. We also have the eagle that's been outlined. We have the elk, and we have the logo, and we have the map. Okay, so all of the components are here. We also have the document fonts that we're going to use for this. And the two that we're going to use are Chunk 5 and Minion Pro. And Minion Pro is something that I believe you have on your systems at school. We have Minion Pro, but Chunk 5 is something that you are going to have to load into FontBook so that it is recognized in this project. All right, so I will close that out. Okay, so it's called The Brown Bears of Yellowstone, and this is the basic layout. And what I'm going to do is pull this up in InDesign to show you the final pieces, you know, the final project, how it looks in InDesign, and then we'll go in and construct it. Okay, so with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen here, and I'm going to pause this video and load up the InDesign file, and then I'll be back. Okay. Okay, I am back, and I've pulled this up in InDesign, so let's go there. Share my screen here. And here is the example in InDesign. And what I always like to do is just kind of, before we get started, is just kind of break this down into what you're seeing here. And basically, if I open up my layers panel, we can see that we have 3 layers: a type layer, an images layer, and a background layer. And if I click on these here, you can see that the back, you know, the back panel here is on the background layer, represented by the blue outline. So is this shape here, this rectangle. And then we have text that's on the type layer. We also have some more text on the type layer, and we have a map, which is considered an image. That's on the images layer, as well as the logo and the brown bear itself. So what I like to do is I usually set up 3 layers every time I create a document. And that is usually a type layer, images layer, and a background layer. And so that's what I did. And I'm going to use this to reference as we build it, just referencing typefaces and size, so we don't have to waste time in kind of experimenting and finding out, you know, searching for what this is or experimenting. So this is basically what we have. And we have, let me turn on my working mode so that you can see. This is a background rectangle, which is just colored tan. This is another shape that's right on top of that. And then we have white text that's on top of that. We have body copy. We have a map and also a little highlighted circle here. If we look at that map here and we look at the circle, we put that on top. We have the logo, and then we have the bear that sits in there. Okay, so I'm going to undo that with Command Z, Command Z, Command Z, Command Z. Undo all of that and get this back to the original layout. And that's pretty much what's going on. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 elements on the page. And if you break it down that way, it doesn't seem like it's so complicated. Okay, so let's get started in building this design. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to create a new file. So we're in InDesign, and I would go to your Essentials Classic palette configuration here, and you're going to go to File, New, and open up a new document. Now I've given you the size on this, which is 6.5 by 9.5. So you're going to physically type in those in inches and make sure that it is in inches and not picas, okay? Because that's going to create big problems. So inches, and then go ahead and click 6.5. And I like to hit my tab key, and that kind of takes me around to the next field, cycles you through the next field, and 9.5. We don't want any pages. We only want, actually, you're going to create a 3-page document because you're going to do all 3 of these. You're going to do the bear, the elk, and the eagle. So for now, go ahead and give it 3 pages. Start page 1 is fine. Margins at 1/2 inch are fine. Don't worry about columns or gutter width. Just go ahead and create that. And uncheck facing pages. Okay, so see where it says facing pages right here? Just go ahead and uncheck that. And so that way you'll get 3 separate pages in your pages palette. So I'm going to create that. And if we look in our pages palette, we can see we have page 1, page 2, and page 3. Okay, so this is going to be the basis of our design. Going back to the original brown bear, the next thing you're going to do is go ahead and open up your layers palette and create the 3 layers that you're going to need. So I'm going to go over here. And before I actually do that, I'm gonna save this project and give it a name. Okay, that's usually the first thing that you want to do is save your project the minute you open it. So I'm going to go up to File and Save. Notice how it says Untitled up here. That means that it has not been saved. So I'm going to save this as an InDesign document. You leave that as the default. And I'm just going to call this the Yellowstone posters. Yellowstone posters. And I'm going to save this to the desktop, but you're going to save this to your ThawSpace. Okay, and I would suggest that you go over to your ThawSpace and find your folder and find your Yellowstone, file. In fact, what I would actually do here is I would make a folder and call it Yellowstone poster and create that folder. Okay, here. And I would move this Yellowstone kiosk assets into the main Yellowstone poster. Okay, you can do that afterwards, but for now, this is what I want to target, and the name of the file is Yellowstone poster, so I'm going to save it right there. Okay, instead of saving desktop, I'll save it there. Okay, and you can see now that my file is called Yellowstone posters. Okay. And if I want to just double check that, if I opened up my ThawSpace here and went here, I can see Yellowstone poster. There indeed is my InDesign file that I just saved. Okay, so everything is fine. Close that out. Okay. So the next thing I'm going to do is go up to my layers panel and I'm going to create 3 layers. And right now, the default is 1 single layer, and it's called Layer 1. So I'm going to call this layer, I'm going to just kind of double click on this and call this layer the background. Okay, background layer, click OK. So it's background. Then I'm going to add another layer, and I'm going to call this layer. Now, if you just click on it once, you can name it right here. If you double click on it, a menu flies out like that. So same thing. I'll just kind of click once on that. And I'm going to call this layer, the red layer, I'm going to call this, well, I'll do it like the original. So I'll call this type. And then I'm going to add a 3rd layer, and I'm going to call this images. That's all my photos, graphics, anything that is not type or the background. And because over here in my original, images is in the middle layer, I'm going to move that to the middle layer. So just anytime you want to move layers, just grab a layer, click and drag it down so it sits underneath the type layer. Okay, so I have my 3 layers, type, images, and background. It's the same thing that I see over here. Okay, so we'll all be using the same. We'll all be on the same page. And then we can start building this. I will go to my brown bear original file. And let's start from the back. We're going to let's draw a box, and we'll draw this background box and then the box that sits on top of it. So we're going to draw this one, and then we're going to put this one on top of it. Okay. So I'm going to, let me just shorten this up a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to go over to my toolbar and I'm going to grab my rectangle tool. Okay, and remember we talked about these tools, and we talked about the fact that what you see here isn't necessarily everything in that tool set. So go ahead and click and hold and use, I'm going to use the rectangle tool. I'm going to start from the upper corner of this, and I'm just going to click and drag this down. Now notice how it dragged the box in green. That's because I was currently on the images layer. What I should have done, let me delete this, okay, is I should target my background layer and then I should draw my rectangle. Okay, so if I draw this, then the outline bounding box looks blue instead of green. Okay, the outside color of the bounding box tells you what layer you're on. Okay, now that I've drawn that box, I'm going to color it, and don't worry about the exact color. I might have given you colors here. Let's see, did I give you actual colors to use? I don't think I did. Okay, so go ahead and try and find some browns that are, close enough. And I'm going to kind of go into my color picker here and double click. And I'm going to go over to kind of move this up until I start getting some browns. You can see the browns happening over there. I might even go a little bit higher, and the browns are usually, okay, all depends on where, you got to find these browns. That looks like a darker brown there. So I'm going to start there. Now I can sample colors from the actual bear itself with the eyedropper tool, which I'm going to do, but let's just start here for now. So I'm going to click OK. I'm going to add this to my swatches palette, this color brown here. So I'll just add to swatches palette, and you can see it fills. And if I don't like that color, I can go down to it, maybe a deeper brown, maybe kind of darken this a bit, and find, let's say, a deeper brown, add that to my swatches. Yeah, I kind of like that better. So if I click, I'll click OK, and if I click open my swatches palette, you can see the two browns that I added here. I'm going to take this brown and delete it because I don't want that brown. I want this brown here. Okay, so that'll be fine for my background color. Oh, actually my background color is lighter. Okay. I'll make this my my inside color then. I'll put this off to the side here. And I'll grab my selection tool again. And this time I'm going to click and drag another box. This will be my actual background color. And I'll go over here and I'll find a lighter shade of brown. So I'll come up here and move that up, and let's say, yeah, actually I'm going to kind of come down to where the original brown was down here. Maybe make it a little bit lighter. I don't know. I'm getting a little too picky here, so sorry about that. Okay, maybe something like that. I'll add this to my swatches palette. There it is, and click OK. And then I'll take my other shape, and I'm going to proportionally scale this. So hold the Command and the Shift key down with the selection tool, and I'm going to just kind of drag this and make it smaller and kind of put this up in here. Now, this is colored the darker color, and the only reason we don't see it is because it's behind this color. So with this selected, I'm going to just go up to Object, Arrange, and bring it to the front. And now we see that in front. Okay, these colors are quite a bit different, it looks like. Okay. I'm just going to put that there for now. I'm going to hit my W key. Okay, now this also has a black outline around it, which I do not want. So I'll click my outline and make it none. Okay, and then click my foreground color. I also don't want a black outline on this one either, so I'll click my outline and make it none. Okay, and then click the fill. Okay, now I'm looking at this and I'm looking at this. Okay, these colors are way off, but let's just kind of go with this for now. And it looks like the spacing here and here are the same, and here are the same. So I'm just going to eyeball that, and I'm going to come over here and just kind of pull this in a little bit, pull this in a little bit. Okay, so that the spacing starts looking the same. Maybe pull that down a bit. And then I'm going to move this around until I see that center right there. See how when you move this around, you can, InDesign helps you find the exact center. And then I'm going to let the mouse go. Okay. And I'm going to look at that. This outside color looks way too gold, so I'm going to change this. I'm going to double click on this color here. And well, let's just find another color because that color is just not working. So I'm going to double click this and let's go to something that looks more like the original. And I think that would have been maybe more up here. Maybe something like that. Okay. Something kind of tannish. So I'll click add to swatches, click OK. I'm going to get rid of this gold color because I don't like this. Delete that. And I'm going to click this and make it this tan color there. Yeah, that's better. Okay. It's still not the exact same color, but that's fine. Okay, so I have my two now, and these are both on the background layer. Okay, we have my background, we have the front. And now what I'm going to do is just lock this up. So I'm going to click that and lock it up so that we can't move this now by mistake. See, I'm trying to move it. If it's unlocked, I can click and move this, and you know. So let me lock that up. And so we're ready to now start putting our elements on. Okay, so if I took off the visibility of the back of the images and the text, this is what we have so far, right there. Okay, now what we're going to do is let's bring in all of our images, and there's 3 of them. Actually, there's 4 because there's this little circle right here. And then the last thing we'll do is we'll add the text. Okay, so as far as images go, we have the bear and the map and the logo. So let's bring those in. So here we are, and we're going to go to File and Place. We're going to grab our assets, our bear, holding the Command key down, Yellowstone logo, and Yellowstone map. I'm going to open these. Okay. And I'm going to target the images layer. And you can see the icon, loaded up icon. So I'm going to click and drag this bear pretty big. We can resize him later, but let's just drag that bear out there. And then the next thing to place is the map. So I'm going to just kind of place the map. Don't worry about the exact size for now, and because we can always adjust this. And then I'm going to drag the logo out. Okay. So we have these 3 here. And now let's take a more critical look and see what this looks like. So if we went to our example here that I posted in Canvas, we can see that the bear is sitting, he's pretty big on the page, okay? And he's breaking out of this inner rectangle here. And he's about this far away from the bottom. And so anyway, the bear is kind of like the main focal point of this piece. So let's go back to InDesign and let's enlarge this bear. And first of all, I'm going to place the bear. I'm going to click and hold so I can see this move. And I'm going to place this bear about right down there. Right? See about that spacing and that spacing. And then I'm going to drag this up by holding the Command and the Shift key. I'm going to drag the corner up and really enlarge this bear. Okay, and get this bear up about like that big. Maybe move this over a little bit. Okay. Something like that. Let's take a look at the map here. The map is about this big and the logo is about this big. So yeah, we're pretty close. I'm going to make the map a little bit smaller. Again, holding the Shift and the Command key down, clicking a corner and doing that slowly and bringing that down to size, putting that about there. And then I'm going to grab this Yellowstone logo, again, holding the Shift and the Command key down, click, hold for a second, and then slowly move in diagonally and make that a little bit smaller and place that right about there. Okay, we can tweak the position later, but let's just figure that, okay, that looks about right. Going back to the bear, okay, yeah, that looks pretty good. It's a little bit different, but for the most part, the layout looks good. Now, also, if you wanted to crop this, you can pull these handles in. And if you don't hold the Command and the Shift key down and just grab these handles, you can just tidy up this box. Nothing happens, you know, you don't need all of this. So you can kind of make this a little tighter. I like to do this because it just makes the boxes a little more neat. I'll click off. Okay, now we have everything on the green layer. Everything's green. These are all images. And now what we're going to do is lay in the text. Okay, so for now, everything is somewhat positioned correctly. I'm going to lock that images layer so that we can't move any of these by mistake. And then we're going to set the text. So I'm going to target the type layer. And I'm going to go over to my type tool and I'm going to draw a type box, and I know that the heading comes way over here. And I'm just going to type in for now what the text is going to say. And it's going to say the brown bears of Yellowstone in chunk 5. Okay, so we're going to assume that we already loaded chunk 5 into font book, so it's going to be recognized. And let me just type in the brown bears. And I believe the second line is of Yellowstone. Okay, so it's 2 lines flush left, or a line left. So the brown bears, I'm going to hit the return key, and I'm going to go of Yellowstone. Okay, and let me zoom in here for a second just so that you can see what that is looking like. Okay, and make sure that you type these correctly, all capital letters, initial caps here, and break it into 2 lines by hitting the return key here. Okay, now I'm going to highlight this. Now, one thing I know is it's in white, so I'm going to get my swatches out, and with the text tool, highlighting the text, I'm just going to hit paper. So that's going to turn this into white. If I click off, you can see it's now white. And then I'm going to make this chunk 5. Okay, and you can see when I roll over chunk 5, and yours might be alphabetical. Okay, so go down and look for chunk 5 right there. Okay, everything's listed alphabetically. Click on that. And let go, and that's what we have. Okay, now if I go over to the original, you can see that the text is fairly large. Okay, now if you don't know what size this is, and we don't, you know, I mean, I can highlight this and tell you that it's 26 points, but right now, let's say we don't even know what size we want this. Okay, we just want to make it bigger. We can do this kind of interesting enough, we can take our selection tool, and if I grab this and made this text box kind of nice and tidy here, and I held down the Command and the Shift key and grabbed the corner, I can proportionally scale this up to any size I want. So I'm going to click and hold for a second, and as I drag, you can see how this gets bigger and bigger. And I know that I want it to be about, let's say, that big. So then I'll let go of the mouse. Okay. Now this is making text larger just visually, and that's really all we care about. Another thing is we want to close up the leading here because that leading is way too open. This does not look good right now. And I'm going to just kind of set this in here right there. And the problem is there's too much space between these two lines. And that's something that is a design element that you'll need to start recognizing when you set text. But for now, if I highlighted this text, it'll tell us what the point size is. Right now it's 34 points and the leading is 41. And we know what leading is because we talked about that in the last lecture, the distance from baseline to baseline. And I'm going to close that leading up. So I'm going to go with the down arrow here under the leading field. And I'm going to just click and just keep clicking until this tightens up. Okay. And that looks better. Okay, that might be a little too tight, so I'll open this up a little bit more. Okay, something like that. The brown bears of Yellowstone. I'm going to back out of this, Command 0, and that's what we have right there. Okay, now it might still look a little bit too big, so if I highlight this, I could reduce the size of this a little bit. So instead of 34 points, let me go to 33. Yeah, 33 points is okay. And then just kind of recenter this in here. Okay, that looks pretty good. Okay. Notice how the end of the map aligns with the end of the S here. That's good design too. And we can see that the spacing around here looks nice and airy and even and balanced. And that's what we want in layout. We want things to kind of, really look at our spacing. All right, I'm going to grab this text tool and move this up a little bit. Okay, now I'm going to draw in a box of placeholder text right in here. And you can see from the example here that this text is just kind of placeholder text that's sitting right in here. Okay, it's flush to the edge of this text right here, and just kind of fills this area nicely. So let's do that. I'm going to grab the text tool and I'm going to just sit and start with about here and draw a text box that comes down about here. Now I don't have to worry about any of this because it doesn't say anything. So I think this text is going to be too big at 12 points, so I'm going to make this text a little bit smaller. Let's make it about 8 points, and then I'm just going to fill with placeholder text. So I'm going to come up to type up here, and I'm going to come down and fill with placeholder text. Boom. And you can see that that text comes in. I'm going to highlight this and make it paper. And that's what that looks like. And we're going to just assume that that's text that describes where the brown bears of Yellowstone are located in the park. And the purpose of this poster is to give visitors in the visitor center, when you come to Yellowstone, an idea of where to find specific animals in the park, so that you don't waste your whole day trying to look for bears and you're in the wrong part of the park. Yellowstone is a gigantic park. So okay, so let's zoom in here and we're gonna make a little design kind of tweak here. Usually when you set type and you have a photo next to it, you want the top of that photo to line up with the X height of the type. Okay, this is a a secret design feature that I want to share with you. And I'm going to do that. I'm going to select this, and I have to unlock my images. And I'm going to select this image and kind of bring this down so it kind of lines up right with the X height of this text right there. And that looks good because this spacing in here is nice and even. Okay. And there's my Yellowstone logo. Let me just drop it down a bit. I use my down arrow, 1, 2. Okay. And that looks good. Now this text is supposed to be in Minion, and it is. 8 point is fine. You can use 8 point. And there we have it. Okay, I'm going to do Command 0 and back out. And there is our poster. Let me just grab that guy and drop him down. 1, 2, 3. Okay, a little bit more. And that looks pretty good. I'm going to grab all of this text, click on the text, hold the Shift key down, click on this box, click on this map, click on this Yellowstone, and I'm going to move all of these down just a bit. 1, 2, 3, and we'll leave it at that. Okay, that looks balanced to me. That looks kind of more comfortable. All right, and I might drag this guy down a bit. Okay. Now, lastly, I'm going to put that little circle in there. And if we look at the example here, if I zoom into this example, you can see that this circle right here need to take this map here. Let me back out of this for a sec. Oh, the type is covering that. Okay. Let me lock the text layer. Okay, this circle right there is a circle that's sitting on top of this map. And if I pull this circle out, you can see that it has transparency. It has a opacity change, which means that you could see through it. See, when I place it over the map, you can see the map underneath that. So all this is a circle that's filled with a color, and then the opacity is reduced. Let me undo that. Okay, so let's make that over here. Let's come into our, well, let's make the circle outside so you can see it. I'm going to grab I want the circle to be on my images layer. I'm going to lock my type layer so I don't accidentally move that. Target my images layer, and I'm going to grab my ellipse tool. Okay, I'm going to just draw it out here for now. And I'm going to hold the Shift key down so it's a perfect circle, so it's not an oval. Okay, so there it is, okay, about that size. And it automatically fills with whatever your fill color is. And so let's go to the swatches palette, and I don't want a black outline, so I'll click None, and then I'll click the fill icon, and I'm going to fill this with red. Okay, and now I'm going to click my selection tool, and I'm going to bring this on top of the map right there. Put that there. Now let me zoom in so that we can see that. Now we can kind of tweak the size of this and so forth. Okay, let's first of all reduce the opacity of this circle. And the way you do that is with the selection tool and selecting the circle. I'm going to come up here to the opacity field, and I'm going to click this arrow, and I'm going to drag this down in opacity. Notice how it starts getting transparent. This is no transparency, full transparency, which means you don't see it. And as I slowly start moving it to the right, you can start seeing that circle, but you can see through it. So I'm going to keep this at about, I don't know, really doesn't matter, as long as you can see through it, about 40%. And I'm going to move this over to the area that the brown bears are in. Now, this is all fake, so who knows where the brown bears are. But I'm going to make this a little bit smaller with the selection tool. I'm grabbing this corner, holding the Command and the Shift key down, Remember I told you the Command and the Shift key are really a main key, because you want to click, hold, and reduce this down smaller so that you can see it actually reduce. Okay. So let's say around Tower Fall, that's where all the brown bears hang out. So we're going to click, hold, and we're going to move this around here. So in other words, what we're telling our audience is that what the tourists are getting from this is that if I go to Yellowstone, I need to go around this area here in order to see the brown bears. You know, I don't want to spend all day around Old Faithful because I won't see any bears. I have no idea where the brown bears are, but okay, we're going to get all this information from the client. They know best. They're going to tell us where to put this circle. Okay, so we have that, and I'm going to Command 0 and back out of that, and we're done. This is it. Okay, we've completed this poster, and I'm not really into telling you how the design came about, how the layout came about, but in the video below this, what you're going to see is kind of a thumbnail sketch that I do. And that's usually how design starts, with kind of thumbnail sketch ideas. Anyway, this is done. We have our 3 layers. Okay, I'm going to unlock all of them. This is the visibility of each layer. So if I take the type layer off, you don't see the type. If I take the images layer off, that disappears. And then, of course, the background layer, and we have a blank page. So we started with our background, we added our images, and then we added our text, and we're done. We have 2 things we can do with layers. We can lock them so they don't move, and we can take off the visibility so that we can isolate certain things and not have other things interrupt. Okay, got the gardeners here, so you hear the buzz of the leaf blowers. Apologize for that. Okay, so now that we're done, we're going to save this, Command S, and I should have been doing this along the way because now is not the time to be saving. And I've saved this to the file, and we determined that I save this in my thaw space under the Yellowstone poster. So this is the file right here, okay, that I just completed. And now I'm done and can move on to the next part of this assignment, and that is to create, under pages, page 2 and page 3. Okay, and page 2 and page 3 are going to actually look like this and this. Okay, and if you look carefully, we're using the same size type, just in a different position. We're having a different image. We're using the same map, the same logo. The layout has changed a little bit on this one and this one. And we're changing the layout based on the shape of the object that we're using, the main element. In this case, an elk, and in this case, the angle of the eagle makes us have to lay this thing out this way. We want all of these to look the same, and yet at the same time, they're different. Okay, but the whole purpose of doing this is to kind of keep a consistency with all of this. And the way we're going to do this is we're going to copy and paste this exact layout to the next pages. And then all we're going to do is swap out the text and rearrange things and bring in a new photo and so forth. And that's what the next video is going to show you, is how to take an original design and then spin that off into different versions of that. Okay, so that'll be in the video that's right underneath this. With that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and say that that is the example, the original example of creating the brown bear. And then you're going to create the other 2 in addition. And then you're going to upload all 3 to Canvas, and that's how I'm going to grade this. Okay, and once we get that done, then see, we're just kind of slowly moving on. I want to jump into Photoshop. I want to show you how to do some Photoshop techniques with some photos, and then we'll be ready for some real fun stuff. Okay, so with that, I'm going to end this video, and I will see you in class. Okay, take care.